Hello from Mindset Daily, wishing you a day full of health, peace, and happiness. Thank you for watching the Mindset Daily channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Thank you so much. What if everything you've believed about energy is backwards? What if rest isn't the key to strength, but resistance is? And what if the moment you feel like stopping is the very moment you grow? Let's dive in. The human body is often compared to a machine, but it's not just any machine. It's a remarkable kind of machine, one that defies normal wear and tear. While most machines break down with use, the human body does the opposite. When you use it wisely, when you challenge it intentionally, it actually grows stronger. Your muscles don't develop when you let them rest. They grow only when you stress them, stretch them, and push them to their limits. And the same goes for your mind. You don't sharpen your thinking by coddling your thoughts or staying comfortable. You sharpen your mental edge when you push yourself past what feels safe. The mind becomes sharper not through ease, but through challenge. And what about your character? The most valuable part of who you are. It doesn't evolve in moments of peace. It's forged in moments of tension, in those decisive seconds when everything inside you screams stop, but something deeper, something unexplainably powerful, drives you to keep going. Now, here's a truth about energy that most people never fully grasp. Energy isn't just something you have. It's something you create. It's not like gas in a tank that runs out with use. No, energy behaves more like a muscle. It grows stronger the more you engage it. Or imagine it like a fire. It burns brighter when it's fueled with purpose and action. Take a moment and really think about it. When was the last time you felt fully alive, fully energized? Odds are it wasn't after lounging for hours doing nothing. It likely came after a meaningful accomplishment. When you pushed through resistance, overcame a challenge, or reached a goal that once felt impossible. That feeling didn't come from rest. It came from action. Because here's the secret. Energy follows action, not the other way around. But most people have it backwards. They wait to feel motivated before they move. They say, I'll work out when I feel better. I'll start that project when I have more energy. I'll make that call when I'm not so drained. But those who succeed, the top performers, the resilient minds, understand a different truth. You don't wait for energy to arrive. You move to summon it. This rule applies to every area of life. In business, for example, the most successful entrepreneurs aren't necessarily the ones who start with more money, more time, or more energy. They're the ones who take that first step even when they feel tired, even when nothing is certain, even when common sense tells them to wait for better timing. Because they know one thing. Momentum is everything. And momentum doesn't begin when it's easy. It begins with a single step. And often, that step feels like the hardest one to take. Now, think about this. How do people respond to fatigue? The average person feels tired and takes it as a signal to stop, to rest, to wait. But those who thrive see fatigue differently. Some people treat their fatigue as if it were sacred, a final command from the universe to stop. They bow to it without question, as though it carries unquestionable authority. But those who succeed interpret fatigue differently. They don't see it as a red light, signaling a full stop. They treat it more like a yield sign, a moment to pause, assess, and move forward with greater awareness. Fatigue isn't an obstacle. It's a message, a signal worth understanding, not obeying blindly. Over the years, in studying what drives human achievement, I've noticed something most people miss. Fatigue is often not physical at all. We convince ourselves it is. We feel our limbs grow heavy. Our thoughts become cloudy. There's this overwhelming urge to just sit down, to switch off, to retreat from whatever lies ahead. But in truth, more often than not, that feeling isn't coming from our body, it's coming from our mind. You see, the mind is a strange and powerful thing. Its core job is to protect us. It wants to keep us safe, to conserve our energy, for what it believes truly matters. But here's the catch. Its definition of important doesn't always align with what actually leads to long-term growth, fulfillment, or success. The mind is programmed to avoid discomfort. It favors ease. It nudges us toward the path of least resistance, whispering, "Not now," or "Do it later," or "Wait until it's easier." But let's be honest, when does easier ever arrive? There's a truth that can transform your life if you're willing to embrace it. That mythical perfect moment you're waiting for, it doesn't exist. That challenging task you're putting off today will feel just as hard, if not harder, tomorrow. That awkward phone call, that intimidating project, that leap you've been hesitating to take, it won't magically become easier next week. The demands won't shrink. The fears won't disappear. The only thing that changes is that by waiting, you now carry something heavier, the burden of procrastination. Delaying action doesn't remove the difficulty. It adds weight to it. It stacks guilt, pressure, and anxiety on top of what was already hard to begin with. It's like adding bricks to your backpack before you even start climbing the mountain. So, what should we do when we feel tired, mentally, emotionally, or even physically? We do what successful people do. We move anyway, not because we feel like it, not because it's convenient, not because we're running on some bottomless source of energy. We move because we've learned something most people haven't. Movement creates energy. The very act of taking a step forward, even a small one, sparks momentum. It wakes up strength that was lying dormant. And sometimes that first uncomfortable push is exactly what unleashes everything we thought we were missing. That's the power of action. It builds momentum. Taking that first step often makes the second one easier. And no, this isn't about becoming a workaholic or pushing yourself to the point of burnout. Let's be clear, your body absolutely needs rest, proper nutrition, and quality sleep. Those things matter deeply. But what we're talking about here is something else entirely. We're talking about those moments when you know you should do something important, when you're standing at the edge of a task that truly matters, but you feel tired. Not because your body is physically drained, but because your mind is resisting the effort. You're not exhausted. You're avoiding. And deep down, you know it. Now, let me share a powerful truth about what happens when you choose to move anyway. When you take action in spite of that mental resistance, you're not just getting a task done. You're creating something far more valuable. You're building what I like to call your psychological muscle. Every time you override the urge to delay, every time you push through the fog of fatigue and step forward anyway, you're strengthening something deep inside you. You're training yourself to act independently of how you feel. Think about how powerful that is. You're developing a core skill, arguably the most essential skill a human being can master. The ability to do what must be done, when it must be done, regardless of whether you feel like doing it or not. That's the turning point. That's the beginning of discipline. And here's where it all compounds. That inner discipline you're building, it doesn't just show up once and disappear. Over time, it becomes a habit. And habits, as we know, are the compound interest of life. Small actions, repeated consistently, create results that seem almost impossible until they happen. Think about it. The person who forces themselves to exercise when they don't feel like it doesn't just benefit from one workout. They build the habit of showing up day after day until their entire physical health begins to transform. Their body becomes a reflection of consistency, not motivation. The entrepreneur who makes those tough phone calls, even when mentally drained, isn't just checking tasks off a list. They're building the habit of taking necessary action, no matter the emotional weather. That habit doesn't just move the business forward in the short term. It reshapes the entire future of that business. And what about the student who studies even when they feel mentally tapped out? They're not just absorbing information. They're developing a mental discipline that will carry them through exams, through professional challenges, through life. It's not about one study session. It's about building an identity rooted in resilience and follow through. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. The more consistently you apply this principle, the more often you push yourself to act despite fatigue, the less tired you begin to feel over time. It's almost like your body and mind adapt. Your capacity for energy doesn't just stay the same. It grows. It stretches to match the demands you place on it. People often ask me, how do you have so much energy at your age? And my answer is always the same. It's not magic. It's not genetics. It's because I use energy. I feel energized because I repeatedly take energizing actions, especially when I don't feel like it. That's the key. It's in the moments when your motivation is low and you act anyway. That's when real energy is built. Think of energy like a bank account, but a unique one. In a normal account, the more you withdraw, the less you have. But the energy account works in reverse. The more you withdraw through meaningful, purposeful action, the more the balance actually grows. The more you invest your energy wisely, the more energy you generate. Every single time you force yourself to move, even when you're tempted to sit still, you're making a deposit into that account. And those deposits add up. They build resilience, stamina, and strength that will pay dividends for days, weeks, and years to come. Now, let's talk about what this actually looks like in daily life. How do you force yourself to move when you feel tired, unmotivated, or drained? It starts with a mindset shift. You have to understand that feelings are not facts. They might feel real, but they're not always telling you the truth. Just because you feel tired doesn't mean you're too tired to take action. Just because you feel like quitting doesn't mean you actually should. Feelings are temporary, like passing weather. They drift in and out. But actions leave footprints. Your choices to push forward, to take even the smallest step in the right direction, create real, lasting impact in your life. The first step is simple but crucial. Recognize that fatigue, in many cases, is just resistance wearing a disguise. Your mind isn't trying to harm you. It's trying to protect you. It senses discomfort and tries to shield you from it. But what the mind wants to avoid is often exactly where your growth is hiding. That moment of inner resistance, that voice saying, maybe later or let's start tomorrow, is actually your signal. It means you're standing right at the edge of transformation. The second step, start small. When you're feeling tired, overwhelmed, or unmotivated, don't try to conquer the entire mountain. Just take one step forward. If you're supposed to exercise, but the idea of a full workout feels impossible, don't worry about going all out. Just put on your gym clothes. Just walk around the block. Just do 5 minutes. Because sometimes all it takes is that tiny act of movement to break the inertia. And once you're moving, everything starts to shift. You'll be surprised how often a small action leads to something much bigger. When you feel mentally drained and a project seems overwhelming, don't focus on finishing the whole thing. That can feel like too much. Instead, just open the file. Just write one sentence. Just make one phone call. These tiny steps matter more than you think. Movement generates energy, and that energy fuels more movement. It's a beautiful, self-reinforcing cycle. But it only begins when you take that first small step, especially when you don't feel like it. That initial act of movement is the key that unlocks momentum. And once momentum kicks in, it can carry you far beyond what you thought was possible. The third step is just as essential. Connect your actions to your deeper purpose. Because when you're tired, it's so easy to forget why you started. Fatigue blurs the vision. You begin to lose sight of your goals, your reasons, your mission. That's why purpose is so important. Purpose is the fuel that keeps your engine running, even when your physical and emotional tanks feel empty. So ask yourself, why does this matter? How will taking action, right now, even when I don't feel like it, serve my greater goals? What kind of person am I trying to become? And more importantly, what would that version of me do in this moment? Sometimes the answer is obvious. The task you're avoiding will directly move you closer to your goals. Other times, it's not about the task itself, but about the character you're building by doing it. Because every time you take action in spite of how you feel, you're reinforcing the kind of person who follows through, no matter the circumstances. And sometimes, it's even bigger than that. You're not just building a habit for today. You're laying the foundation for who you'll be for years to come. It's never just about the discomfort of the moment. There's always something deeper, always a reason more powerful than your desire to rest. Now, here's something that's important to remember. Every successful person in history has felt tired. Every extraordinary accomplishment, every invention, every breakthrough, every masterpiece was brought into existence by someone who had to push through fatigue, frustration, doubt, and a very real temptation to give up. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who settle for the ordinary isn't that the great ones never felt tired. It's that they learned to act in spite of their tiredness. They moved anyway. They persisted when quitting felt easier. Think about Thomas Edison. Do you think he felt energized every night in that dimly lit laboratory? No, he was exhausted. But he kept going, experiment after experiment, until at last he invented the light bulb. Michael Jordan felt tired too, especially during those grueling, repetitive practice sessions that pushed him to the edge. But instead of giving in, he chose to keep going. He forced himself to refine his skills, to keep showing up, to do the hard work. And that relentless consistency is what helped him become the greatest basketball player of all time. The same holds true for every successful entrepreneur. They've all had moments when they were mentally fried, when the weight of building a dream business felt like too much. But they still picked up the phone to make one more call. They still wrote one more email. They still tested one more idea, even when everything inside them wanted to stop. What's powerful about this principle is that it's universal. It works in every single area of life. If you feel too tired to exercise, that's exactly when exercise will serve you the most. Not just in building physical strength, but in strengthening your mind. In that moment of resistance, showing up for yourself is what builds resilience. If you feel too mentally drained to make progress on your goals, that's when working on them matters most. Why? Because that's the moment discipline is being shaped. And discipline is what separates the successful from everyone else. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's doing the work, even when it's the last thing you want to do. Feeling emotionally depleted, like you have nothing left to give to your relationships? That's precisely when reaching out, offering love or support will not only deepen your connection with others, it'll revive your own spirit. Taking action when you feel least capable often produces the most surprising strength. But let's be crystal clear about something. This is not about glorifying burnout. It's not about pushing yourself past the point of no return or ignoring genuine physical and emotional needs. That's not resilience. That's recklessness. There's a crucial distinction between two types of tired. There's the fatigue that comes from real exhaustion. From long days, hard work, or emotional strain. That kind of tiredness calls for rest, recovery, and renewal. And then there's a different kind, the kind that comes not from overwork, but from mental resistance. The kind that shows up right before breakthrough. The kind that whispers, let's take it easy, when deep down, you know you're capable of more. So how do you know which one you're dealing with? Real exhaustion usually shows up after consistent, meaningful effort when you've been pushing hard for a while without enough rest. Your body and mind need time to repair. And honoring that is not weakness, it's wisdom. But if you haven't actually been doing the work, if the tiredness shows up before you even begin, chances are what you're really facing is resistance dressed up as fatigue. This kind of tiredness, the one that comes from true exertion, is your body's way of saying, slow down, recover, restore. It's a signal you should respect. When your body has been working hard and pushing its limits, it needs time to repair. In these moments, the smartest thing you can do is honor that message with proper rest, balanced nutrition, and quality sleep. That's how you prepare for your next level of performance. But resistance, tiredness, that's a different beast entirely. This type of fatigue doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from avoiding what needs to be done. It's not the result of effort. It's the result of mental avoidance. It sneaks in when you hesitate, procrastinate, or overthink the very things you know are necessary for growth. You've probably felt it. That sudden wave of exhaustion the moment you sit down to start a difficult project. The tension in your chest when you think about making that uncomfortable phone call. The emotional drain when you imagine having a long overdue conversation you'd rather not face. This tiredness isn't real fatigue. It's psychological resistance. And the amazing thing is, it often begins to vanish the moment you take that first step. As soon as you move, open the document, dial the number, speak the first sentence, something shifts. The fog begins to lift. And the more you act, the more that so-called tiredness fades into the background. That's why learning to distinguish between exhaustion and resistance is so essential. It's the difference between choosing to rest and choosing to rise. So remember this, when you're genuinely exhausted, rest is not just acceptable, it's necessary. But when you're feeling that low, nagging tiredness that shows up before you've even begun, that's your cue to move. Because in that moment, movement is the cure. Now, let me share with you one of the most powerful insights I've learned about human energy. It's something that changes everything once you understand it. Energy is not just about what you do. It's about how you think about what you do. Two people can perform the exact same action, same effort, same duration, but walk away with completely different energy levels. One feels recharged, the other feels utterly drained. Why? Because the difference isn't in the action itself. It's in the mental frame they bring to it. The person who takes on a task with bitterness, telling themselves how unfair it all is, how tired they are, how they'd rather be anywhere else, of course they'll feel depleted. They've already told their mind this experience is a burden. They've robbed the action of meaning. But someone else can take on that same task with purpose. They focus not on the difficulty, but on the benefits, on who they're becoming by following through. They remind themselves why the task matters, what it leads to, what it builds. That mindset transforms the entire experience. Instead of draining their energy, it actually fuels them. This is why your internal dialogue matters more than most people realize. The words you whisper to yourself in moments of struggle shape what happens next. Instead of saying, "I'm too tired to do this," try flipping the script. This is exactly the moment I need to prove to myself that I can do hard things. That simple shift turns fatigue into a challenge and challenge into growth. Rather than fixating on how drained you feel right now, place your focus on how you'll feel after you take action. Picture the pride, the relief, the satisfaction that will come once it's done. Don't dwell on the discomfort of the process. Visualize the reward of completing it. That change in focus is what transforms hesitation into momentum. Your mind, after all, believes what you repeatedly tell it. Speak defeat into it, and you'll feel defeated. Tell yourself over and over that you're too tired, and your body will start to reflect that belief. But if you consistently remind yourself that you're capable, especially when you don't feel like it, you'll start to become capable. You'll build strength from the inside out. Because the story you tell yourself about your ability to act, even when you're tired, eventually becomes your reality. And that reality is what sets the foundation for every habit, every achievement, every breakthrough that follows. That brings us to another essential part of this principle: the connection between physical movement and mental energy. Too often, we treat the mind and body as if they operate separately. But that's not how human beings are built. The body and mind are two sides of the same coin, an integrated system constantly communicating with itself. When you move your body, even just a little, you shift your mental state. Change your posture, and you change your perspective. Straighten your spine, lift your head, take a breath, and your mindset begins to reset. Small physical movements can lead to powerful mental changes. Increasing your physical activity, even in small bursts, leads to more than just fitness gains. It enhances your focus, clears out mental fog, and builds emotional resilience. That's why some of the most successful people in the world carve out time for exercise, even when their schedules are packed. They don't see movement as a luxury or a distraction from their work. They see it as a foundation for doing that work at the highest level. But here's the good news. You don't need to run marathons or lift heavy weights to benefit from this. The principle is universal. Stand instead of sit. Walk instead of scroll. Stretch, pace, take a few deep breaths. Anything to move your body when you feel stuck mentally or emotionally. These small shifts can trigger immediate, noticeable improvements in your energy, clarity, and motivation. Your body has a powerful way of teaching your mind. Every time you move, even when it's hard, it sends a message. Action is possible. Momentum is real. You're capable of more than you think. And when you act on that message consistently, the effects begin to stack in powerful, lasting ways. Let's talk about the compound effect of applying this principle over time. Each time you force yourself to move when you're tired, you're doing far more than completing a task. You're shaping your identity. You're reinforcing the belief that you can act no matter how you feel. And that belief becomes something psychologists call self-efficacy. Your internal conviction that you can overcome challenges and achieve your goals. And here's the incredible thing. Self-efficacy doesn't just boost your confidence, it improves your performance. People with high self-efficacy take on bigger goals. They persist longer through setbacks. They bounce back faster when things go wrong. Why? Because they've built up proof, real, lived proof, that they're capable of pushing through adversity. And how is that belief built? Not through motivational quotes or good intentions, but through action. Through doing the hard things, especially when you don't feel like doing them. Every time you choose to exercise instead of hitting snooze, you're not just working out, you're telling yourself, I can choose discipline over comfort. Every time you commit to your goals when your mind is begging for rest, you're demonstrating that your purpose matters more than your momentary feelings. Every time you tackle a responsibility you'd rather avoid, you're collecting evidence that you're someone who follows through, no matter what. That evidence compounds. Over time, it builds an unshakable core of self-trust, a deep knowing that you can rely on yourself. You stop just hoping you'll persevere in tough times. You begin to know it. And that kind of knowing changes everything. You move through life with a quiet confidence, not because everything is easy, but because you've trained yourself to rise. That self-trust becomes a renewable source of strength and energy. It creates a powerful upward spiral. Confidence leads to action. Action produces results, and those results fuel even greater confidence. It's not hype. It's not theory. It's the psychology of growth in action. But here's what's truly remarkable about this principle. It doesn't just shift how you view your own abilities, it also changes how the world responds to you. When you consistently show up with energy, when you push through fatigue and follow through on your commitments, people notice. They're drawn to that kind of strength. It's magnetic. Why? Because consistency is rare and energy is contagious. People naturally gravitate toward those who take action, who keep their word, who find a way forward even when it's hard. They want to work with you, learn from you, support your efforts. Your example becomes a quiet form of leadership, one that doesn't demand attention, but earns respect. Your willingness to move, even when you're tired, speaks volumes. It inspires others to raise their own standards. Think for a moment about the people you most admire. Chances are, they aren't just brilliant or talented. They're the ones who keep going. They don't make excuses. They don't wait for ideal conditions. They act consistently, courageously, even when it's inconvenient. These individuals often seem to have an endless capacity for action. But it's not magic. It's not luck. It's mastery. They've trained themselves to move in spite of how they feel. And here's the powerful truth they've discovered, one that most people never realize. The more you move when you feel tired, the less tired you become over time. Why? Because your internal capacity begins to expand. Your energy increases to meet the level of action you consistently demand from yourself. Your strength rises to match the challenges you choose to face. This is one of the most beautiful and reliable truths about human nature. We grow into whatever we regularly require of ourselves. And this principle doesn't only apply to physical action. It works just as powerfully in the mental and emotional arenas of life. Feeling overwhelmed by a complex problem? That's your cue to break it into smaller, manageable steps and to start with just one. Action breaks anxiety. Feeling discouraged, unmotivated, or stuck in a rut? That's when persistence matters the most. That's when pushing forward, not in giant leaps, but with steady, intentional movement, builds the resilience that eventually leads to breakthrough. Every act of forward motion becomes a vote for the kind of person you want to be. And little by little, those votes add up. Feeling too uncertain to make a decision? That's precisely the moment when making the best decision you can, based on the information you have, helps develop your judgment. That's how decision-making skills are built. Not through waiting for perfect clarity, but by taking action through uncertainty. You grow by engaging with the challenge. The pattern is always the same. The moment you least want to do something is often the moment when doing it will benefit you the most. Not because the task itself is suddenly more important, but because of what it represents. Overcoming that resistance is what builds the psychological strength that makes everything else in life easier. It's the training ground for mental resilience. Now, let's address something that a lot of people wrestle with, maybe even you. That creeping feeling of guilt or the internal pressure that can arise when hearing advice like this. You might think, does this mean I'm supposed to be pushing myself all the time? Never resting? Always overriding how I feel in the name of productivity? The answer is no. That's not what this principle is about. This isn't about glorifying constant hustle or denying your real needs. It's about developing the wisdom to discern between two very different signals. When your tiredness is a true call for rest, and when it's just resistance wearing a clever disguise. It's about building the inner strength to choose your response to fatigue, rather than automatically surrendering to it. It's about becoming intentional, about creating a life where your decisions are guided by purpose, not momentary feelings. A life where you take deliberate action, even when it's hard, because you know it leads somewhere meaningful. Of course, there will absolutely be times when the wisest and most responsible choice is to rest, to take a break, to restore your physical body and recharge your emotional batteries. This is part of the process too. This principle doesn't reject rest. It honors it, as long as it's chosen consciously, not as an escape. The goal is not to become some emotionless machine that never stops. The goal is to become a fully alive human being, one who has the freedom to act in alignment with their highest values, one who chooses what will serve their long-term growth, not just what feels easiest in the moment. This kind of freedom, the ability to act based on purpose, not just emotion, is what separates truly fulfilled, successful people from those who constantly feel stuck. Stuck in their moods, stuck in their doubts, stuck in cycles they never chose but feel trapped by. Because when you can move despite feeling tired, you're no longer a victim of your moods. When you can take action regardless of whether you feel like it, You're no longer limited by the ups and downs of everyday emotion. You become something greater. You become the author of your life, not just a character reacting to a script written by your feelings. And now, perhaps the most empowering truth of all. This principle is available to everyone, no matter where you're starting from, no matter what your current circumstances look like, no matter what mistakes, setbacks, or limitations you've faced in the past. You don't need special talent. You don't need endless resources. You don't need perfect timing or ideal conditions. What you need, what truly matters, is a single decision. The decision that next time you feel tired, but deep down you know something important needs to be done, you'll do it anyway. Even if it's not much, even if it's far from perfect. You start where you are, with what you have. If you're too tired to work out for an hour, then commit to 10 minutes. If your mind feels too foggy to focus on your big project for 3 hours, then give it 15 focus minutes. If you feel emotionally drained and making 10 phone calls feels impossible, just make one. The size of the action isn't what matters most. What matters is the choice to act, despite how you feel. That's the moment that changes everything. Each small victory builds momentum for bigger wins. Every time you push through tiredness, even a little, you're proving to yourself that fatigue doesn't control you. You control your response to it. The more you move in spite of resistance, the more you strengthen your belief that you can handle whatever life throws your way. And remember, this is not about chasing perfection. It's about building progress. You won't always win the battle against fatigue. There will be days when you postpone, when you give in, when you procrastinate. That's part of being human. The key is to return to this principle as quickly as possible, without getting stuck in guilt or self-criticism. Think of it like learning to ride a bike. You don't expect to glide smoothly from the very first try. You wobble, you fall, you hesitate, but you get back up. You adjust, you try again, and before you know it, what once felt difficult becomes second nature. That's exactly how this works. In the beginning, choosing to act when tired will require conscious thought and deliberate effort. But with time, with repetition, it becomes a reflex, a part of who you are. But over time, something powerful happens. This effort, this habit of moving when you're tired, becomes a natural part of who you are. The shift doesn't occur overnight, but it's real. And when it finally takes hold, you begin to notice the difference everywhere. What once felt like impossible challenges now seem like manageable obstacles. Tasks that used to drain your energy no longer hold the same weight. That heavy feeling of fatigue that once made you freeze in place, it becomes something far less threatening. Just a flicker of resistance that you now know how to move through with ease. Barriers that used to intimidate you become stepping stones. They don't disappear, but you see them differently. Instead of blocking your path, they help lift you to higher levels of achievement, of growth, of personal fulfillment. And here's the real magic. The energy you generate by consistently moving, especially when you least feel like it, does more than help you check items off your to-do list. It changes your relationship with life itself. You stop seeing life as something that just happens to you. Instead, you begin to experience life as something you're actively shaping. With every decision, every step forward, every moment you choose action over hesitation. You no longer wait for energy to show up like a gift. You learn how to generate it. You become the source. And that shift, that transformation in mindset, is perhaps the greatest reward of all. Because once you trust that you can create energy through motion, once you've proven to yourself over and over again that you can do hard things even when you don't feel like it, you begin to approach every situation with a new level of confidence. You stop asking, "Can I handle this?" and start thinking, "Let's go." So here's my challenge to you today. Don't wait. Don't put this off until you feel more rested or more inspired. Don't wait for better timing, fewer distractions, or an empty calendar. The perfect moment is right now. Whatever your circumstances are, This is your moment to begin. Take a look at your life. Be honest with yourself. Identify just one area, just one, where you've been letting tiredness, doubt, or hesitation hold you back. You know the one. Now is the time to move anyway. Maybe it's your health and fitness, the workouts you keep postponing because you're too drained after work. You tell yourself, tomorrow, when I'm less tired, but somehow tomorrow never comes. Or maybe it's your career, the difficult conversations, the ambitious projects, the bold decisions you've been avoiding because they feel overwhelming and uncomfortable. Or perhaps it's in your relationships. You've been putting off meaningful connections, avoiding vulnerable conversations because interacting with others just feels exhausting at the end of the day. Whatever that area is for you, make a commitment right here, right now, to take one small action today. Not when you feel ready, not when it's convenient, but in this very moment, despite how tired or uncertain you might feel. Don't aim for perfection. Don't worry about changing your whole life overnight. Just prove something to yourself, that you can move even when you don't feel like it, that you can act in the face of resistance, that you already have more strength than your emotions might be letting on. And when you take that first step, something shifts. It's subtle but powerful. You start to remember who you really are. You reconnect with the part of yourself that's not a victim of fleeting feelings, but a creator of consistent action. You realize you're not at the mercy of your moods. You're in charge of your movement. You begin to embody a powerful truth. Energy follows action. As momentum builds, you feel it. Forward movement gives birth to more movement. And the truth becomes clear. Life's greatest breakthroughs rarely come when you're feeling your best. They come when you choose to do your best, even when you're tired, uncertain, or emotionally flat. That's what creates real growth. That's the path to a fulfilling life. Not one where you're constantly waiting for the right emotion to guide you, but one where you generate the energy, the results, and the experiences that reflect your highest goals and core values. And it all begins with a simple but powerful decision to move even when you feel tired. The power is in your hands. The choice is right in front of you. And the time? The time is now. So ask yourself, what will you do with this moment? With this opportunity to rise just a little higher than yesterday? This is your chance to prove something not to the world, but to yourself, that you're capable of far more than you've allowed yourself to believe. So move, act, begin, not because it feels easy, but because it matters. Not because you have energy, but because this is how you create it. Not because you're ready, but because your future self is counting on the decision you make right now. Don't let them down. Stay strong, stay intentional, and as always, I wish you health, happiness, and deep fulfillment. And don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Daily for more content to keep you growing every single day.